Hello everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, here with a probably, hopefully, maybe long-awaited episode of Tales from Behind the DM's Screen. I do apologize, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I've had several ideas of what I wanted to do with my next episodes or so, and I've definitely scripted out or outlined. I don't really script these things out, but I've definitely outlined out several. But I did actually have somebody who watched this ask me a question or ask me about a possible episode, and I did take that to heart, and so I'm going to do that today. Now, what they asked me about was, and I want to say this, if out there, if you want to hear any kind of stories or my opinions on whatever, by all means, please ask me to do a video on that. I've got tons of opinions about RPGs and D&D and all those things. So if you want to hear my thoughts or what have you, please just ask, and I'll see if I can fit that in the schedule. But that being said, the question that was asked to me was, had I ever had a situation where the players, the PCs, had gotten a hold of something that was too powerful, like a magic item that was far too powerful for the level they were, and did it up the balance of the game, and what did I do if that was the situation? And the answer to that question is absolutely, absolutely there was, and I'm going to tell a couple of stories here. But one of the things I want to mention is that back in the old days of playing D&D, there were tons of charts and tables of this, that, and the other thing. And one of the things about those charts, there was a treasure type chart. If those of you who played old school D&D know what I'm referencing. But each monster had a treasure type. Just for whatever reason, I remember hobgoblins were treasure type D, and dragons were treasure type H, which was the really nice treasure. But regardless, there was just basically a treasure table. So if you decided, I'm going to put some ogres in this room, you would look up what the treasure type they had, and then there was an X amount of percentage of certain types of treasures showing up in that particular treasure trove that they had. There's a lot of balance issues with that. One of the things about it is that as a kid, when it would say treasure type D for a hobgoblin, okay, there's 4 hobgoblins in this room, and you'd look at treasure type D and it'd be oh, there's a 30% chance of 7,000 silver or something like that. And for those 4 hobgoblins, to have 7,000 silver pieces was ridiculous. But what me as a player back then didn't realize was that was supposed to be within their entire stronghold. So if you had a cave system with 40, 50, 60 hobgoblins, interspersed among all of those hobgoblins was 7,000 silver. And so that was where we kind of made mistakes as far as those were concerned. But the reason I'm mentioning that is that lots of the treasure types had chances for magic items. Then when you had a chance for a magic item, what you would do is okay, there's a 35% chance of this kind of magic item or whatever. And then if you rolled successfully to put that magic item in, then you'd roll on another table which would have all these different types of whether it was swords or armor or potions or scrolls or a miscellaneous magic item, staves, wands, you know what I'm getting at. So what then you would do is then you'd have all these successive tables. Okay, roll on this table, roll on that table, roll on this table, roll on that table. And then eventually you got done and you'd find out that these hobgoblins amongst their treasure would have a sword +2. Now you would logically give that to the hobgoblin chieftain. He would use it in combat against the players, because there's no reason why they'd tuck that away somewhere. But the chances were there was no quality control on that. If you rolled a lot of successive really lucky rolls, that particular Hobbiton chieftain could have a sword +5 dragon slayer or something along those lines. And then, I mean, that would be kind of ridiculous because, he might have a sword +5 and he might be like swinging it this way and that, but he still only has, maybe 16 hit points. And so if the players manage to put him to sleep, all of a sudden now they have a +5 sword of dragon slaying, which, like I said, is kind of ridiculous. But so that would lend itself to the idea that we would create magic items and we would put magic items out there that as DMs we thought the idea of these cool magic items, we were entranced by the idea of these cool magic items and putting them into our dungeons, but we didn't really have, as I said, quality control over what it would actually do to upset the balance of the game. But that being said, I was a kid, and we didn't really care. The idea of a long-running campaign really didn't apply to us until we really got into high school. We would try to play, the most our characters would ever get to would be like 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th level, before an adventure would be forgotten about, and we would just move on to something else, and we would make new characters. It wasn't until high school, like I said, that we really started playing extended campaigns with the same characters over and over again, gaining levels, and the balance of the world really came into play. Also, at that time, we played a lot of games that weren't D&D as well. We played a lot of GURPS, we played a lot of BattleTech, a lot of Car Wars. We were all over the place with the different tabletop and RPGs that we were playing. So where I'm going with this is that it wasn't until later that I had situations where I mistakenly gave out a weapon to a party that I had no business giving out. But for whatever reason, the allure of the really cool magic item was still sitting there, right? It was still like, I really want to do this. I really want to create... I want to put this really powerful sword. For whatever reason, I want it to be in there. And one of these instances was in a campaign that we were running, that we were playing it in high school, and then we would continue playing it in the summer when everybody came back from college. And in this campaign that I was running, there was a drow elf, of course. Somebody had to be a drow elf. There was a drow elf rogue, and his name was Darian Shadowstar, and I always thought that was a cool name. And I just thought it would be cool, for some ridiculous reason, for somebody to have a Vorpal sword. And so I was like, cool. And so then, and the thief, for whatever reason, got to have it. I don't remember exactly why. Maybe it was like it was a scimitar or something that he used, because of course he wielded a scimitar. He's a drow elf. He's supposed to, right? But no, I mean, I don't know if it was like that or whatever. But for whatever reason, they gave... Instead of giving the Vorpal weapon to like a fighter who would be making 3 or 4 attacks around, and you'd want, okay, so a Vorpal weapon, you roll a 20, you'd kill what you were fighting. The idea was that you cut off their head. So it was like it was a pretty powerful weapon. But I had a situation, and this is actually probably a pretty good discussion for another video. Basically, the big bad evil guy of the campaign, I had a moment of him gloating, oh, you'll never defeat me, blah, 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 just like that amazing, like I'm untouchable, you can't defeat me, I've got, thousands of hit points, my armor class is 1 billion, you can't hurt me kind of thing. And he was just there at a grandstand for a little bit, and then he was gonna, take off, right? But Darian decided it would be a good reason to rush forward and make an attack. And as you can probably guess, he rolled a 20. So now this is my big bad evil guy, and I had to come up with a very convoluted reason why it didn't work, why he couldn't kill the necromancer that was trying to destroy the world, because I wanted him to live, right? I had to come up with a reason why. But so I came up with a bad reason, and that's, like I said, another video. But I also then realized I've got to figure out a way to make this sword somehow not so powerful. Now I could just take it away from him. I could say, you know what, I made a mistake, give me the sword. But that seems kind of cheap, right? You know, I mean, I gave it to him. I should take my lumps and I should, you know, figure it out. But what I did decide was that, like, I came up with this reasoning that when he made the successful attack on this, like, near omnipotent power, and, like, nearly took the necromancer's life, the sword gained a sort of sentience. And then what I did was, and back in the day, you could make a sword. Swords, like, could have the possibility, and you know, theoretically other weapons, but they basically made it swords. Swords were just smart, and they'd have ego, and they'd try to take over them. I mean, it was a ridiculous system, and I don't know of anybody that really tried to use it or anything like that. But what I did was, I made the sword a coward, and it didn't want to ever. It didn't want to come up with its scabbard. It wouldn't let itself be drawn. And basically, it became a situation where Darian would have to, like, argue with the sword and convince it that it was okay for him to be in a fight, and that Darian would make sure that it didn't get hurt, and all these other things. And it wasn't so much that I took away the sword. I took away the weapon in any way. But what I did was that I put a limitation on it, and made the Joel, my friend who's running the Drow Elf, I made him kind of jump through hoops to get it. So it was a process that I could limit it but not take it away. And I thought that worked pretty well. You know, I learned a very good lesson at that moment, like never to do that again. But I mean, I also learned at that moment that it was just kind of like, you know, you don't have to just, you know, take a big giant eraser and get rid of something. It's fine. You can usually come up with a good way to adjust the campaign and make it so you know, like the player doesn't feel like you just kind of hose them in some way, or, you know, and just like you don't have to stand back and say, well, I'm the DM and I decided that's what's going to happen. Like, it wasn't. I guess, like, I was kind of happy that I was able to just handle it in a way that I didn't have to be heavy-handed. Now, the other situation that I have is kind of a lot like the same situation. However, this wasn't my campaign. What this ended up being, and this is kind of interesting. So I had a friend who was basically, I was delivering pizzas for I think it was a Domino's, if I remember correctly. And it was just one of those things where there's a couple people there, and you end up talking, and somebody ends up talking. They play D&D, and you mentioned you play D&D, and you know, and there's probably a really good video I could do about the difficulty in introducing new people into campaigns. It's a tough thing to do. That's actually a good video too. But so it wasn't one of those situations where I was saying, hey, I'd really like to play in your campaign sometime or anything like that. I had my own D&D groups. I had my things going on. But what I did have was one day I was approached by this person that I worked with, and they said, I've got something. I was hoping maybe you'd come in and come in and play a guest session kind of thing, and just play in one or two game sessions of my D&D campaign, because I need you to do something. And the thing is that, like, and he actually, you know, it was meta before things were meta. Basically, there was one character that had, once again, it was one of those things where the DM had given them a weapon that was too powerful. It was like basically unbalancing the combats and things like that. And so what he did was, he told everybody at the table, he's like, hey, I got a buddy who, you know, he lost his D&D group. He'd like to come in and play. Is everybody okay with that? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? And so, and the idea is like the entire reason that my character was there, and I wasn't going to be there. I wasn't going to, like, join the group and be part of the group, you know, for, like, forever or anything like that. But we told the players that I was. And so the whole point is that the weapon that he had was like some sort of artifact for some sort of cult. And I was an agent for that cult, and I was sent to go get the weapon. Now, if I just got into the party and I attacked the guy, it just wouldn't work. He was much too powerful. I wouldn't be able to defeat him. But what I was supposed to do was, as soon as I had the first moment possible, I was supposed to grab the weapon, and I had a basically like an amulet that I could activate that would teleport me away. And then I would and then I would be out of the game. I was there for that specific purpose, and it worked. It worked really well, actually. I showed up for one session. We had a good session. I didn't have an opportunity to do anything, so I came back for the second session, and as luck would have it, or bad luck in the case of the players, they got into a combat, and the guy with the weapon, just he's used to just cutting swaths of his enemies down like basically a curtain of blood, and but I forget how, but basically he couple of bad rolls, a couple of lucky hits, and some magic missiles and a fireball and everything like that, and he eventually finally took enough damage that he got knocked down. And before the cleric could run over and heal him and get back up, on my turn, I basically, in the heat of combat, I ran over, I grabbed, it was an axe that this guy had, and I grabbed this axe and I teleported away. And basically all the players are like, yeah, so they said my character just vanishes, and then they're like, oh, that's really weird. And then they finished off the combat and they got done, and the DM just said to the player, I mean the guy's Ben was the guy's name, the my friend that I worked with, but he said, I forget what the player's name, but he was like, yeah, so you wake up and you look around and Aegis Fang, which was the name of I remember the name was the axe. He goes, it's nowhere. You can't find it. It's just not near you. And he looked, I still remember this guy, he zeroed in on me and he goes, you. and that was it. I was like, and I'm out. See you guys later. It was a lot of fun playing with you. And it was one of those things where I thought that was a little heavy-handed. I mean, now looking back, at the time it was fun, everybody laughed and what have you. And in the end, I'm sure his campaign worked out a lot better, that weapon was out of it. But I also, once again, I thought that could have been, it was just heavy-handed, right? It was just kind of like one of those things where it's like, you were gonna take it away from them anyway, so why go through the rigmarole of this story to take it away? You could have just said, you know what, we're just gonna take the weapon, it's gone, see you later, let's continue moving on. And, yeah, so, I mean, that's one of those things where it would maybe have... in a lot of ways, maybe just learn from it, right, and don't have that happen again. I'm a big believer in you don't have to have a ton of magic in a campaign for it to be fun. If magic items are extremely rare, the players will treasure them when they get them. I don't have a big if it's an expendable magic item, I have no problem with that. If it's potions, scrolls, even wands, once you use up the charges, they're expendable, they're done. The wand becomes a stick, but things that will permanently be part of that character, whether it is magical amulets or rings or armor or weapons, those should be given out priceless artifacts. And that's just my opinion. I know lots of people play games and just suits of chainmail +1, you can buy them off the rack, and that's fine. If that's the kind of game you like to play, then you should play like that. But I have found that you don't have to give players magical items for them to feel powerful. You can make players feel powerful just by putting them in positions to succeed. And when they succeed, they will feel powerful, and they don't need a magical sword to do that. And when you introduce a lot of math and a lot of nuts and bolts into a campaign, and you allow crazy magic stuff that's going to alter the actual process of what's going on in your world, you run the risk of having situations where the really delicate balance of the campaign, is lost, and now you've got to step in and either do something that the players are going to feel is cheap or mean-spirited or unwarranted, or you're going to have to just say, you know what, let's just erase that moment and let's go back to something earlier and go back to the previous save, right? and start over from that point, which is going to break the immersion a great deal as well. So and it's tough, right? I mean, when you start running games and you start playing games, it's tough. It's tough to it's tough to learn that breaking point, and quite honestly, you really can't be taught it in a book. You really can't be taught it by listening to a video. You can get good ideas and you can get a feel for what you're going to do, but the only way you're going to learn is if you just do it. Nobody learns how to ride a bike by reading a book about it or watching a video of riding a bike. You learn about riding a bike by just finally not being scared anymore and just starting to pedal as fast as you possibly can. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of how you dungeon master as well, and how you learn to be a good dungeon master as well. So there you go. There. Thank you very much. I apologize. I should have looked up the name of the person that asked that question, but thank you very much for asking that. It made me stop and remember several moments of back in my role-playing game history. And that being said, I mean, if anybody has any kind of questions or ideas of something you want to hear, if you want to hear about any of my old campaigns or opinions on different games or game systems or whatever, by all means, ask away, and I'd be happy to do this as well. If you could, take a moment to hit the old like button, hit the old subscribe if you haven't done so already. I guess you can hit that bell and you'll know when these come out. My goal is to make one of these a week at the very least. I do these when I'm inspired to do them and I'm not dead-ass tired. And right now it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I am a little dead-ass tired, but I just had this one stuck in my head for a while and I really wanted to put it together. So thank you very much, as always, for taking the time to watch. Just be the best version of you possibly can be. I guarantee you do that, good things will happen to you. All right, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.